I took my own life on New Year's Eve, a time meant for family reunions. Unexpectedly, my ex-husband, who had always seemed indifferent towards me, went mad with revenge against those who had treated me poorly after my death. He even vowed to die for love in my memory, yet, when I was alive, he clearly didn't love me. Now, as a specter, I stood beside my own corpse. The Grim Reaper, tasked with collecting souls, stood before me, flipping through his ledger. "What's your name, Laura?" I responded, hoping he would swiftly take me away so I could be reborn into a better family. However, the Reaper's gaze lingered on his ledger for a long time before he finally addressed me. "Your time was not up, and there's a child inside you. Why did you take your own life?" I glanced at my lifeless body, pale in the bathtub. "I just didn't want to live anymore." The Reaper, visibly frustrated by my words, his mustache askew, tapped his ledger and said, "Do you realize that taking your life before your time is like making a false report in your world? It's unethical. Moreover, the child inside you was supposed to have a fresh start at life, but now can't be born because of your actions." Honestly, I had no idea I was pregnant when I decided to end my life. But hearing so much from the Reaper, I frowned. "Why are there so many rules even in death?" The Reaper replied, "There are still many beautiful things in life that you need to experience. Come on, go back to your body." Thinking of my harsh, vampire-like parents, my extravagant sister and brother, and my ex-husband's cold face, I firmly said, "There's nothing beautiful left in my life. Just take me away. I'd rather be a cat or a dog in my next life." No matter how much the Reaper tried to persuade me, I refused to return to my body. Thus, the Reaper proposed, "People who commit suicide before their time have a hard time getting reborn. Here's a deal. I'll give you 1 month to stay on Earth as a ghost. If, within this month, you still find nothing worth living for, I'll help you with the reincarnation process." After some thought, I agreed to the Reaper's terms. Spending time as a ghost, experiencing the world anew, didn't seem too bad. On the first day as a ghost, I sat on a bay window and watched the lights of thousands of homes throughout the night. My phone, placed beside the bathtub, only received automated festive greetings. There were hundreds of contacts in my phone, yet nobody reached out to me on New Year's Eve. Towards the end, my bulky old phone finally rang. I floated over to see it was from my ex-husband. He had sent a photo of a cardboard box filled with some clothes and used makeup products. "Your junk," he texted. "I'm giving you 1 day to get rid of it. Don't clutter my house." My ex-husband, Mandy, was a cold and ruthless business tycoon. At a young age, he took over the family business and multiplied its achievements in just a few years, earning him the title of a business prodigy from the outside world. When he first took over the company, many doubted him, mockingly suggesting he should use his good looks to make a living in the entertainment industry instead. But even perfect people have flaws. His flaw was that he didn't love me. He had been infatuated with a girl from his middle school days, and I was merely the result of a childhood arrangement made by our mothers. My family was wealthy early on, but tragically, we went bankrupt during my senior year of high school. I had a pampered older sister and a spoiled younger brother, under parents who favored sons over daughters. When our family went bankrupt, yet, my sister studying abroad remained unaffected, I was constantly reminded by my parents, "Business at home is tough, you need to be sensible." I strived to earn scholarships and took on part-time jobs to avoid burdening my family. But then, my parents sent my good-for-nothing younger brother abroad for studies, spending $200,000 to $300,000 a year without batting an eye. While I worked for hourly wages at KFC, my brother partied on cruise ships. While I handed out flyers in a heavy mascot costume in the scorching heat, my sister skied on snowy mountains overseas. It seemed like I was the only one affected by our family's bankruptcy. In my senior year of college, my parents connected with Mandy, a significant figure. Mandy's mother had a car accident while pregnant. My parents found her and took her to the hospital, saving her and the unborn Mandy. Seeing that my mother was also pregnant and considering my parents' respectable appearance, Mandy's mother suggested arranging a betrothal between our unborn children. We thought it was a joke. But during my senior year, as Mandy's mother fell gravely ill, she recalled the betrothal arranged in her youth. Thus, she approached our family. For our bankrupt family, this was like winning the lottery. Logically, my sister was the one betrothed, but she had a stable relationship abroad by then. As Mandy was taking over his company and was criticized as being just a pretty face, my sister refused to marry him. So, I, the chosen unfortunate, was pushed forward. My marriage certificate came before my diploma. I knew early on that Mandy did not like me. When we went to register our marriage, Mandy's mother held my hand and waited for Mandy outside the civil affairs office for half an hour. When he arrived, he just glanced at me and said to his mother, "Something came up, sorry I'm late." He didn't look at me again after that, so I knew from the start, he didn't love me. I sat on the balcony, feeling the cold wind, watching the lights outside. The despair following my suicide slowly engulfed me. I felt I should play a song to express my emotions, but unfortunately, I could no longer move my phone. Just as I was wondering where to wander, my phone in the bathroom kept ringing endlessly. It was Mandy calling. We had just gotten our divorce certificate the day before yesterday. He said there was still some property to be divided and asked me not to block him yet. I knew his character. He never dragged things out and probably just wanted to sever ties completely. But why was he calling me so persistently now? I didn't understand. After dialing and texting repeatedly, I became annoyed and thought about smashing my phone into the bathtub. But being newly a ghost, I was too insubstantial to touch physical objects, so I just watched the phone ring endlessly. After more than half an hour, the phone finally went silent. The next morning, I received a message from my parents. My mother said, "It's not that we're heartless and won't let you come home. Just plead with Mandy to remarry you, and we'll let you come home for the new year." My parents were the first to oppose the divorce because, as long as Mandy and I were married, he would, out of respect for the marriage certificate, provide some financial support to my family. Mandy's family had significant wealth and influence. With a wave of his hand, he could revive my family's failing business. After divorcing him, I could no longer rely on his influential support. During the period of reflection before our divorce became final, my parents came to my apartment countless times, urging me not to go through with it. Seeing my resolve, my father even slapped me, scolding me for not recognizing what was good for me, and declaring that a divorced woman would struggle to remarry. Despite this, I stubbornly went with Mandy to get our divorce certificate the day before yesterday. Just like when we got our marriage certificate 5 years ago, Mandy made me wait alone at the civil affairs office for several hours before he finally showed up, late as usual. After arriving, he didn't say a word, signed the papers, and then left in his expensive luxury car, leaving without a trace of emotion. His car splashed water from the road all over me. I pursed my lips, holding back the tears threatening to spill. With the new year approaching, I bought some New Year gifts and headed home after getting the divorce certificate, only to be turned away at the door. My parents had driven me out. The look in my mother's eyes was harsh. She said, "You have the nerve to come back, knowing that our family can only survive by relying on Mandy's family business. By divorcing him, aren't you pushing me to my death?" I looked down at the New Year gifts scattered on the ground. Years of grievances welled up inside me, with tears streaming down my face. I looked at my parents and asked, "Haven't I done enough?" Ignoring their insults, I turned and left. At that moment, I was prepared to end my life. I suddenly wondered if they would regret their actions if they found out I had died. On New Year's Day, every household was festive. My house was festive too. I sat on the vanity in the bathroom, looking at myself in the bathtub. The bathroom was bathed in a bright red, which, aside from being somewhat horrifying, still carried a festive air. Around 7 or 8 in the morning, every household began their day. The neighbors were busy making dumplings, the chopping sounds busy and constant. It seemed like someone downstairs was cooking herbed fish. The aroma wafted up through the pipes, touching my stomach. I remembered I hadn't eaten for 2 days before my suicide attempt. After downing a bottle of red wine, I had lain down in the bathtub, now, smelling these delicious aromas. I regretted not having eaten my fill before attempting suicide. To die during the new year was one thing, but to die hungry was another. As I pondered whether to drift over to my neighbor's place to watch her make dumplings or downstairs to check out the herbed fish, someone knocked on my door. Who would visit me at this time? Racking my brain, I realized that after becoming a full-time housewife post-graduation, I had lost touch with old friends and never fit in with the wealthy wives' circle. So I had almost no friends left. Could it be a delivery? While I wondered if I had ordered something but forgotten to receive it, I floated towards the door. Peering through the peephole, I was stunned to see Mandy standing outside. Through the peephole, I saw Mandy's handsome face, filled with impatience. He knocked aggressively and repeatedly pressed the doorbell. "Laura, don't think you can get my attention this way. This tactic won't work on me." Mandy's voice came through the door. I was frightened by Mandy's negative emotions. No matter how elated I was moments before, the minute he appeared with a frown, I felt as though the sky was about to fall. Before marrying Mandy, my parents repeatedly stressed that I must not upset her, as our family business's revival depended on whether Mandy would be willing to help us out. Considering our marriage certificate, the night before the wedding, while preparing things for me, my mother advised, "Once you're married, try to please Mandy and her family. After all, your siblings still need money for their education, and you should consider them too." I looked down at my wedding shoes, pursed my lips, and remained silent. If it weren't for the wedding, I would have been at my part-time job today, earning $80 a day. That's why, after getting married, whenever I sensed Mandy was in a bad mood, I chose to apologize, no matter the situation. Eventually, I couldn't even distinguish right from wrong. Under my parents' influence, I believed that if Mandy was angry, it was my fault. Even now, seeing Mandy appear at my doorstep in such a displeased mood, I instinctively felt I had done something wrong and should apologize. But now, I can't respond to his negativity anymore. When Mandy received no answer at the door, he became even more enraged. He called me several times, and my phone in the bathroom rang with the ringtone I usually used. This house was a wedding gift from Mandy's mother before we got married. She's a kind person, she told me. Although it was I who asked you to marry my son, I'm worried you might suffer in this marriage, so I wanted to give you a sanctuary. The apartment is not large, a two-bedroom space of about 80 square meters. My phone was in the master bedroom's bathroom, and I could still hear it ringing from the door. Mandy heard it too. He slammed his hand on the door. "Good job, Laura. You better hide forever and never let me see you again. I've left your things at the door, and don't come to my house ever again." He ended the call, kicked something at his feet, and then turned and left in anger. I hid behind the door, hardly daring to breathe. People say they're afraid of ghosts, but now that I've become one, I'm afraid of Mandy outside the door. I'm really a mess. I glanced out the window, watched Mandy's car drive away, and dared to drift outside. Mandy had brought over a few clothes and cosmetics I had left at his place and forgotten to pack. Not much stuff. It all fit in one cardboard box. Mandy didn't even bother to pack them properly, just stuffed them messily into the box. I squatted down and felt embarrassed seeing my junk thrown at the doorstep for all the neighbors to see. I tried to lift the box, but my hand passed right through it. Damn that Mandy. Tonight, I've decided to stand by his bed and scare him, on the 24th hour of my death. I stood at Mandy's bedside. In my neighborhood, I met a ghost sister who had died from jumping off a building. She told me that since I had just died, I couldn't interact with physical objects like more experienced ghosts to make noises or scare humans. All I could do now was to scare him in his dreams when he was asleep and his vital energy was weak. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I leaned over Mandy's bedside, but there was no one in the bed, since Mandy was still working in the study. I yawned and quietly reflected, to be distinguished in public one must suffer in private. Indeed, not everyone is cut out to be a CEO. I stretched and floated towards Mandy's study, only to find that he wasn't working but sitting at his desk, seemingly lost in thought. Mandy's personality is quite reserved. And like his character, the color scheme of his house and the study was monochrome in black, white, and gray. Only the desk lamp was on, casting light that partially illuminated his delicate features, half hidden in the darkness, adding to his mysterious aura. His eyes were downcast, the computer screen in front of him was on, and his expression suggested a deep melancholy. As I drifted past him, I inadvertently glanced at his computer screen and realized he wasn't working at all. The screen displayed his Facebook chat with Victoria. Victoria wrote, "I'll be back in the country on the 8th. Mandy simply replied, "What time is your flight? I'll come to pick you up." After Victoria provided her flight details, Mandy responded, "Okay." Mandy had always been like this. He would go to great lengths to meet Victoria's requests, standing behind him, watching this brief exchange. The suffocating feeling of having my heart tightly squeezed and then released was significantly less than when I first learned about Victoria's existence. Victoria was Mandy's first love, the girl he regretted missing out on. I learned this 6 months after Mandy and I got married. I married Mandy during my last semester of university. Although marrying Mandy was like clinging to a strong tree, the biased treatment I received growing up made me feel that it was safer to rely on myself. Thus, I refused Mandy's mother's suggestion to be a full-time housewife, shopping and strolling with her, and instead, I took an internship at a company. The internship was tough. I had a manager who was an opportunist, and there was a wealthy peer in my group, so I ended up doing the work of two people, yet the honors were shared. Mandy was outstanding in both looks and capabilities. I had never been in love before, and after marrying him and experiencing marital closeness, I inevitably fell for him. So, the grievances from my internship seemed to dissipate whenever I saw Mandy. At that time, I thought, with such an outstanding husband, what do I have to be sad about? One night, after working late, I returned home to find Mandy in the shower. He often traveled for work and was rarely home, and even when he was polite yet distant, but I was still happy when he came back. Nervously, I sat on the bed waiting for him to finish. While waiting, his phone, casually tossed on the bed, started ringing. The sound of water was still echoing from the bathroom. I went to the door and called out to him to let him know his phone was ringing, but he didn't respond. I picked up the phone, seeing it was an international number. Mandy's business was widespread, and he had introduced me to many foreign business partners at parties, thinking it was one of his business contacts. I felt entitled as his wife to answer the call for him, but when I answered, I was met with a girl's coquettish voice, seemingly drunk. Startled, I asked cautiously, "Who is this?" But the girl's reaction was even more intense than mine. "Who are you, and why do you have Mandy's phone?" She called him Mandy, just like I did. It's been half a year since I got married, and there was a name I dared not utter in emotional moments, yet she could say it so naturally. I calmed my emotions and replied, "Hello, I am Mandy's wife. May I ask what this is regarding?" The girl on the other end seemed to hear something unbelievable. Just as I was about to say something else, the sound of the shower stopped. Mandy, wrapped only in a towel, rushed out and snatched the phone from my hand. I remember her cold gaze, looking at me as if I were a stranger. "Why are you touching my phone?" A woman's intuition told me that the girl on the phone was no ordinary acquaintance of Mandy's. That night, Mandy didn't stay at home and left without any explanation after receiving a phone call. She drove off. Later, I learned from Mandy's mother that the girl's name was Victoria, Mandy's secret crush from her youth. Victoria was a talented and beautiful woman, a beacon of light in Mandy's otherwise dark adolescence, an unforgettable presence. Due to Mandy's lack of success back then, she slipped through his fingers. After Victoria went abroad for studies, Mandy slowly learned business skills from her father and became the business prodigy she is today. Victoria had changed several boyfriends over the years. While Mandy remained alone, people in their circle said that even if Mandy got married, a single call from Victoria would make her abandon the bride to meet Victoria. Unfortunately, I was that bride used in their romantic tale to prove the depth of the protagonist's love. Because I answered Victoria's call, Mandy got angry. Her punishment for me was to venture abroad to expand new business territories. For nearly a year, she didn't return to see me. Mandy was the pride of heaven, and even though our marriage was arranged by our parents, I inevitably fell in love with her. But her silence throughout the year also made me realize that there was an insurmountable gap between us, filled with various factors like family background, perspectives, and vision, but the most significant was Victoria. Knowing she was deliberately distancing herself because of Victoria, my parents, greedy and manipulative, used the family business as an excuse to constantly urge me to ask Mandy for money. My mother said, "I know you're Mandy's wife now, and having a child would secure your wealth and status, but that's still your husband's family. Only if your own family is strong can you have confidence. If you ever argue, you'd have a place to return to." During our time apart, I sent Mandy countless messages, sharing trivial daily matters and caring for her. When she was in a good mood, she would occasionally respond with a brief line or two. More often, it was like casting stones into the sea. But due to my parents' demands, I had no choice but to shamelessly call Mandy. I was terrified of disturbing her rest, so I calculated the time difference to call during her noon break. But it was midnight for me. Yet, when I cautiously made my request, Mandy just scoffed coldly. Then, with a mocking tone, she said, "Laura, would you marry anyone who gave you money?" Hearing her words felt like falling into an icy abyss. I watched Mandy in the study, looking lonely and distressed as she chatted with Victoria on her screen. My feelings were a mix of emotions, but my resolve to confront her only grew stronger. I leaned close to her ear and inflated my cheeks, blowing air into her ear. I've seen female ghosts scare people in just this way. It turned out that my method was indeed effective. Mandy, who had been zoned out, suddenly turned her head, catching both of us off guard as our eyes met. My heart skipped a beat. and I felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. Mandy looked around and, finding nothing amiss, reached over to close the chat window on her computer. She leaned back in her chair, exhausted, pinched the bridge of her nose, and let out a long sigh. I was puzzled. Wasn't the girl about to return? Why the sadness? Could it be that she felt tainted by our 5 years of marriage, unworthy of Victoria? The more I thought about it, the more aggrieved I felt, and I clenched my fist and hit the bookshelf behind her. It was just a reflex action in anger, but unexpectedly, I actually knocked a book off the shelf. The book, with its hard cover and thick pages, made a loud noise as it hit the ground, startling both Mandy and me. I was shocked because could I actually touch physical objects now? Mandy was startled because why would a book fall for no reason? Was it haunted? Together, Mandy and I looked down at the floor, photos tucked between the pages of a book scattered. As I looked closely, I was surprised to find that they were of me, including a couple with Mandy. It was then I remembered that before Mandy's mother passed away, she had taken Mandy and me to the seaside. Under her matchmaking, Mandy reluctantly took a few photos with me. Mandy's mother had the photos developed and gave copies to both Mandy and me. Her intention was for Mandy to frame the photos and display them in her office. I had all mine framed and placed in the most prominent spot, but to my surprise, Mandy had hidden these photos so deeply. "Are these photos so disgusting to you?" I blurted out, unable to contain myself as Mandy bent down to pick them up, and my hand swept a water glass off the table, leaving a stunned Mandy behind. I drifted out the window and back to my own home. "Humph, you think my photos are bad luck? I'll show you something even worse." I couldn't sleep. Ghosts don't die from staying up all night, so I lay on the couch, overwhelmed by negative emotions. 35 hours after my death, my sister sent me a message, bored and lying in bed, thinking about what to do today. My phone in the bathroom rang. I quickly floated over, curious who it could be. Entering, I was startled by my own corpse, lying colorlessly in a bathtub filled with bright red water. I found the scene quite eerie. Oh, I suddenly regretted choosing this way to die. On the phone screen was a message from my sister. She wrote, "Mandy came over early today with a New Year's gift, asking if you were home. Laura, I'm your sister. I wouldn't harm you. Remarrying Mandy is best for you and for our family. Don't be stubborn." 5 minutes later, she sent another message, considering Mandy's status. "He still brought New Year's gifts to see us after the divorce. Laura, take the opportunity to make amends. My sister is 3 years older than me, and I admired her greatly as a child. She was outstanding, did well in school, and always shone in artistic activities. As a child, I simply thought my sister was excellent. As I grew older, I began to question why our parents enrolled her in so many expensive talent classes, while I was stuck with the simplest calligraphy and traditional painting classes. And when our family's business began to decline, the first classes to be cut were my affordable piano and dance lessons. The parental favoritism made my admiration for my sister wane, and she seemed to enjoy it, treating me as nothing more than a sidekick. After I delivered a love letter for her to the high school tough guy, and was cornered in an alley by a girl who liked him, my sister just passed by and left me there alone. When I returned home injured, she told me not to let our parents know she was sending love letters to the tough guy. She attended the same university as me, but by the time I enrolled, she had already gone abroad for further studies. As a distinguished alumni, she was invited back to give a speech during the university's anniversary. From across the crowd, she saw me but did not acknowledge me. Later at home, she spoke to me with a hint of disdain. "Laura, can you dress yourself a bit better? If people knew my sister looked so shabby, it would. You've completely embarrassed me," she said. I smirked internally. Why did they think I looked so destitute? She also played a part in my decision to take my own life. A female ghost in the neighborhood who had been trapped after jumping off a building told me that without anyone to worship her, she had to scavenge for food like garbage. Considering my complicated relationships, I thought it might be better to join her sooner rather than later, or I might not even have warm trash to eat. If cold-hearted Mandy found out that I killed myself after our divorce and that it affected his reputation, he'd probably scatter my ashes to the winds. The ghost and I sat on the rooftop, gossiping about the neighborhood's latest scandals. She mentioned one advantage of being a ghost was getting a front row seat to all the drama, like watching affairs unfold from atop a wardrobe. As we chatted, I suddenly noticed someone at my door. I rushed down and was met by Mandy's icy demeanor. He knocked and, getting no response, called the property management to unlock the door, claiming he was the owner. The management checked their records and informed him that the apartment belonged to another woman, who had no relation to him. When Mandy's mother gave me the apartment, she told me it was my premarital property and had nothing to do with Mandy. I thought she was just placating me at the time, but it turned out she cared more for me than my own parents had. I suddenly missed this beautiful woman who had passed away 3 years ago. Mandy insisted. She's my wife, my family, the property management replied. Then, sir, please get the keys from your wife. We really can't help you, Mandy cursed in frustration. But as a CEO, he had resources most ordinary people didn't. He called a locksmith to break in. The property manager tried to intervene anxiously as Mandy handed out his business card, saying, "Contact me if there's an issue." Recognizing the name of Mandy's family conglomerate, which could buy the entire building, the property manager backed off. Upon breaking in, a strong smell of blood hit them. With a dripping sound coming from the bathroom, Mandy and the property manager exchanged glances, a bad feeling between them. They rushed in and opened the bathroom door. At the property manager's scream, my suicide was discovered. I had imagined various scenarios about how my suicide would be discovered. The worst was decomposing to the point of neighbor complaints about the smell, leading to the grim discovery. Being discovered the day after I killed myself was almost a relief. At least my body was still presentable, albeit not pretty. What I hadn't anticipated was Mandy's reaction. He was in disbelief at first, then tearfully knelt by the bathtub, checking my pulse and touching the gruesome wounds on my wrists, tears in his eyes. He couldn't speak, seemingly in agony, sitting on the wash basin. I thought, typical of a CEO, his acting could win an Oscar. After the police arrived, they secured the scene and calmed an emotionally distraught Mandy. They collected what they called evidence and took away my body. At the police station, the police brought Mandy and my relatives to make statements. Mandy was somber but composed, cooperating with the police. When asked, "Who was the deceased to you?" Mandy replied, "My wife." He paused, then added, "We just got divorced 4 days ago." The officer asked, "What was the reason for the divorce?" Mandy looked down, lost in thought for a long while before she spoke again. She said she felt nothing anymore. I laughed when I heard it. What a statement to make. I feel nothing anymore. Is it up to me alone to decide there's no more feeling? I remembered the day I asked for a divorce. He was still working late in the study. I yawned as I entered the study. He was engrossed in his work and ignored me. I said, "Let's get a divorce." Mandy stopped signing the papers, looked up at me with an indiscernible expression. After staring at me for a long while, he asked, "How much money do you need this time?" That phrase was both hurtful and insulting, in his eyes. I was a woman who married him for money. My determination to divorce was firm, and I bluntly said, "I want a divorce because there's no love left." I thought I had made myself clear, but Mandy stubbornly disagreed. His reason was, "You say divorce as if it's easy, and then you'll beg me to come back. I'm busy. I don't have time to play these pointless games with you." I slammed the divorce papers in front of him. The 30-day cooling-off period for the divorce eventually passed. After I proposed the divorce to Mandy, I moved into this small apartment. At the beginning of the cooling-off period, Mandy came to see me, reeking of alcohol. I initially didn't want to let him in, but he was drunkenly banging on the door, causing a scene that even the neighbors couldn't stand. So I had to let him in, a drunken adult man and me, practically defenseless. Naturally, something indescribable happened. The child in my stomach was likely conceived at that time. He called out my name passionately, forcefully claiming me. I looked up at the ceiling in despair, thinking, he must have mistaken me for Victoria. I had an abortion once. In the 3rd year of my marriage with Mandy, his mother passed away. She was bedridden before her death, and Mandy finally came back from abroad, polite yet distant towards me. Mandy's mother had always wanted us to have a child so she could rest easier. So, to fulfill the task his mother assigned, Mandy would regularly come to stay with me. It was cold, mechanical, devoid of any emotion, the very act that should have been the sweetest. But fate wouldn't have it, and by the time Mandy's mother died, there was still no reaction from my womb. 3 months after Mandy's mother's death, I continued working as a clerk at a company. One day, Mandy suddenly appeared at our company. I was startled, thinking something had happened. I learned from a colleague that our company was collaborating with Mandy's family business, and Mandy was now an investor in our company, having worked diligently over the years with decent skills. I was also invited when the boss and Mandy went to inspect a holiday resort project in the suburbs. Besides me, there were 4 or 5 other people from the company who were to spend a night at the resort. Mandy saw me at the company but merely glanced coldly that night. While everyone else went to the hot springs, I walked around the resort alone, checking the facilities. At a corner, I ran into Mandy, who was on a phone call. Mandy saw me, tried to pretend he didn't and then turned to leave. But that was no longer an option. Mandy glanced at me, hung up the phone, and walked past me, brushing shoulders as he left behind a phrase. From now on, let's pretend we don't know each other at the company. Just great. The 2-day business trip ended. And the boss and his assistant left first, leaving me and another female colleague behind. That night, a heavy rain started. The female colleague who was supposed to return with me said her boyfriend's hometown was nearby. She decided to go with him to visit his parents instead. I was left alone at the mountain resort trying to call a taxi. The area was remote, and the rain made it even harder to find a ride. Mandy and his assistant passed by me. The assistant recognized me and came over to say hello. Mandy was about to return to the city. I could have asked for a ride, but recalling Mandy's sarcastic demeanor, I chose to preserve my dignity, not wanting to embarrass myself. I lied, I'm going back with a colleague. She's just packing up her things. At my words, Mandy's cold gaze swept across my face, causing me to lower my head, unable to meet his eyes. After Mandy left, I continued to wait miserably for a taxi. When I finally managed to hail a taxi, the driver said he couldn't reach the resort due to muddy conditions from construction on the road ahead, and asked me to walk a bit. The road wasn't long but was downhill. Dressed in business attire and high heels, I slipped and fell, unable to get up again. A severe pain erupted in my stomach. I didn't realize what had happened at first, only seeing blood mixing with the rainwater flowing away. By the time the resort staff called an ambulance and I got to the hospital, I learned I was pregnant, but I had miscarried. Unable to cope with this double blow, I called Mandy, only to be hung up on. The next day, Mandy's assistant visited me at the hospital. I learned that Mandy had been at Victoria's birthday party the previous night, had gotten extremely drunk, and hadn't woken up yet. When Mandy finally visited me at the hospital, upon waking and learning about my miscarriage, he only glanced at me and then left for work under the guise of being busy. The only thing he did afterward was to stop me from working, gave me a black card, and asked me to be a full-time housewife, providing me with a driver. Indeed, the loss of the unborn child was merely compensated by financial means, so I couldn't understand why Mandy now seemed so distressed. The forensic report labeled my death as suicide. The coroner told Mandy, "Your wife was carrying an undeveloped baby." Mandy collapsed to the ground, crying uncontrollably despite the busy surroundings. This was not his usual way of handling things. My parents and sister rushed over, showing unbearable grief. My mother, sobbing, grabbed the police officer's hand. How could this be? My daughter wouldn't commit suicide. There must be another reason. Sitting on a nearby chair, watching their heartbroken expressions, I couldn't help but remark sarcastically, "What a performance." The ghost of a man who died in a car accident nearby was moved and even glared at me, saying, "How can you speak like that? They are devastated by their daughter's death." I crossed my legs, responding, "Because I'm the one who died. Just the day before my suicide, they kicked me out and wouldn't let me come home for the holidays." The man was momentarily at a loss for words. Mandy seemed genuinely pained, appearing like a husband who had lost a wife he deeply loved. He even asked to stay with me in the morgue, which made the coroner quite uncomfortable. "Stop talking about the forensic pathologist. I find Mandy's obsession disturbing. Mandy's family is incredibly wealthy, capable of bankrupting other companies in an instant, so the forensic pathologist let him in. My body has been frozen, which is a bit more dignified compared to being soaked in a bathtub." Mandy knelt beside the table holding my body, gently touching my face. "Why would you rather die than stay with me?" I found it ironic, considering he was the one who pushed me away repeatedly. Mandy spent the night in the morgue with my body. He lay on the table, holding my hand the entire time. I watched in disgust, wondering what was wrong with the forensic pathologist for letting him in. As I floated out to confront the forensic pathologist, I heard him standing at the door, his face full of regret. What a loving couple, now tragically separated. What nonsense. Who will speak up for me? After Mandy fell asleep, I decided to haunt his dreams. In the dream, it was a scene at home. I was in the study, and as Mandy opened the door, he saw me standing by the window in a white dress. I first looked at him gently and smiled. "You're back." Mandy froze at the door, his pupils quivering. I was pleased, feeling that I had scared him, as anyone would be unnerved seeing their recently deceased wife appear in a dream. I then walked to the desk, still gentle. "I'll pour you some warm milk. Drink it before you continue working." Mandy took a step forward, looking at me incredulously. "You?" I was quite smug, thinking, "Boy, you must be terrified." I walked up to Mandy and reached out to adjust his tie. "You work so hard, you should rest well at home, otherwise I'll be heartbroken." Being much shorter than him, he couldn't see my face as I adjusted his tie. Seeing the right moment, I made a scary face, baring my teeth and claws to frighten him. But Mandy wasn't scared at all. Instead, he hugged me tightly. He embraced me as if trying to merge me into his flesh and blood. He buried his face in my neck, murmuring, "Laura, please don't leave." "Okay." I was utterly baffled. What kind of plot twist is this? Mandy spent a night in the morgue, and I intended to scare him but ended up being the one frightened. The heart of a man is like a needle in the sea. He avoided me when I was alive but became affectionate after my death. The next day, Mandy was a mess, his eyes bloodshot. His assistant, unable to bear seeing him like this, took it upon himself to handle my affairs. Mandy went back to the apartment where I had taken my life and lay on my bed. It was distressing for me to watch because he got into bed without taking off his socks. Mandy didn't fall asleep. After lying on my bed for over half an hour, he began to search every corner of my apartment. I didn't leave a suicide note because I felt that suicide notes are for those one cares about, and I had no one I cared about, but I did have a habit of keeping a diary. When Mandy found my diary, I realized that something worse than death is social death. I didn't write in the diary every day, but I've been keeping a journal for a while, essentially documenting my life from my late teens to the present. I deeply regret not having devoured this diary when I attempted suicide, in a moment of breakdown. I covered my face and begged the ghost sister, who had jumped from a nearby building and was quite experienced in supernatural matters, to stop Mandy from reading my diary. However, the ghost sister simply gestured helplessly, implying she was powerless to intervene. I was devastated. She added, "I want to take a look too, especially after all the gossip we've shared." I watched as the ghost sister sat beside Mandy, reading through my diary, huddled in a corner. I contemplated bitterly if silencing them both would damn me to hell. After finishing a section, the ghost sister looked up at me and said, "My God, your parents were really terrible to you." I realized what they had come across in my writings. Though called a diary, it was more of a suicide note, detailing the reasons behind my despair. Why did my siblings get to study abroad while our family bankruptcy only seemed to affect my allowance? Why was I always the one getting blamed? On my 18th birthday, I got a DNA test to confirm my parents were indeed my biological parents, yet, I couldn't understand why they treated me so poorly. The summer I turned 19, after taking a shower, I walked out in shorts to get some watermelon and encountered my sister's boyfriend. His intentions were clear as he dragged me into a room. Thankfully, a neighbor heard and intervened, or the outcome would have been unimaginable. However, when my family returned, I was the one who was slapped by my sister and verbally abused by my parents. They sided with him, accusing me of dressing provocatively and enticing him, even though I was the victim. In their eyes, I was the instigator. Mandy, after reading, looked troubled and flipped through more pages. The ghost sister commented, "So, it was marriage first, love later for you." I've seen this plot in novels where the male lead passionately pursues his wife, and they eventually forgive each other and live happily ever after. I twitched a smile. Is there even any love? In the diary, I wrote, "Marrying Mandy was a financial arrangement due to my family's business troubles. Since my sister had a boyfriend, it fell to me to make this marriage, which my family saw as attaching ourselves to a wealthy benefactor, sacrificing my dignity for financial gain. Yet, I didn't see myself as pitiful because Mandy, my husband, is a truly exceptional person. If not for my family's situation, I might never have met someone as outstanding as him in my entire life. I tried my best to be a good wife. Initially, he didn't like me, which I didn't mind since he too was coerced into this marriage and would need time to accept me. I thought it was just a matter of time. But as we got to know each other better, I realized there was an insurmountable chasm between us. He was too outstanding, and I felt inadequate because he loved someone named Victoria. They had known each other from a young age, and Victoria was just as remarkable. If it weren't for my interference, someone as exceptional as Mandy should have been with someone like Victoria. Due to my dysfunctional family background, I often felt inferior, so much so that when I discovered Mandy's affection for Victoria and his frequent contacts with her, I couldn't even bring myself to confront him. I felt that Mandy didn't care for me. It's because I'm not good enough. I feel like my family doesn't care for me, and it's because I'm not excellent enough. The harm caused by my family of origin is deep-rooted, and I believe that all the misfortunes I encounter are my own fault. Fortunate people heal their entire lives with their childhoods, while unfortunate people spend their whole lives healing their childhoods. I am one of those unfortunate people. The police were searching for the reasons behind my suicide. However, the reasons are all embedded in the little things I encountered throughout my life, deeply rooted and incredibly complex, completely occupying my existence. Mandy had been distant for 5 years, and my parents relentlessly exploited me, and then there was the email from Victoria before I proposed divorce. Victoria, the privileged and wealthy woman adored by everyone since childhood, always spoke in a condescending tone. She wrote, "I'm returning to the country. You probably know where Mandy's heart lies. If you don't want to be thrown out, I advise you to initiate the divorce yourself and not be a stumbling block between me and Mandy. If you're worried about financial security post-divorce, I can offer you $2 million, and Mandy will provide you with alimony." Her attitude was clear. "I'm already being generous. I hope you won't be ungrateful." My response was equally clear. I replied, "Don't people usually give $5 million? Why are you lowering the price? It's not good to disrupt the market like this." Victoria was furious. Just as Mandy said, "You only care about money." Despite her words, she still transferred the money to me. I took the money and filed for divorce from Mandy. It wasn't greed. I had spent 5 whole years failing to win Mandy's affection. Now that his girl, Victoria, was returning, how could I possibly compete? I didn't want to be thrown out. So I decided to take the money and leave. I had planned to start a new life with this money, but after the divorce, my parents kicked me out during New Year's, and I found myself alone in a cold, quiet house, drinking silently without anyone to talk to, overwhelmed by negativity. I felt as if the last string holding me had snapped, leaving me without any reason to continue. So, I slit my wrists. I wrote all of this down in my diary. After reading it, Mandy collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down his face as he kept repeating my name. "Laura, Laura, how could you be so foolish? That first time you had a miscarriage, I only wanted to protect you from colleagues' gossip, which is why I asked you to act as if you didn't know me. I really went to Victoria's birthday party, but it was to meet business partners, and getting drunk was due to discussing collaborations. I felt guilty about your miscarriage. But I was wrapping up a project at the time and couldn't afford the distraction. By the time I was free, you didn't want to talk about it anymore. It wasn't like you thought." Between me and Victoria, Mandy, a tall man over 6 feet, wept bitterly in my room. Even the ghost sister by my side couldn't bear to watch. "Look at him, such a deeply emotional man. Why don't you just come back?" I scoffed. "Sister, have you ever seen crocodile tears? 7 days after my suicide, Mandy refused to hold a funeral for me," the ghost sister said. "It's just because Mandy can't accept that you're gone." I spat out, dressing up his laziness about holding a funeral. How nice. Although no funeral was held, my parents came crying to Mandy. They didn't go to the morgue but cried in front of Mandy instead. My parents, who had harshly kicked me out, were now crying more than anyone. Our daughter has always been sensible, and we did our best to provide for her. She married Mr. Mandy before graduating and didn't have a chance to take care of us, and now she's gone. We just can't handle it. My mom gave my dad a look, and he immediately cried. It wasn't easy raising our daughter. She has passed away, and we don't know what to do with the rest of our lives. She was doing fine before, always strong-willed, but then she suddenly took her own life after the divorce. I think it was all because of you, Mr. Mandy." I rolled my eyes at that, the way they spoke, as if they cared so much about me. I could hear their scheming all the way from the underworld. Mandy's assistant couldn't stand it anymore and said, "All this talk is just about wanting compensation, isn't it?" My mother raised her voice. "Isn't it right to ask for compensation?" The assistant was about to retort, but Mandy just scoffed and said, "Compensation is due. Debts must be paid clear." I thought Mandy meant to give my parents a sum of money to stop them from causing trouble. But that night, Mandy instructed the assistant, "Pull out all investments from Laura's family." The next day was Victoria's return to the country. but Mandy didn't go to pick her up as planned. He stayed in his study, reading my diary, and rummaging through my phone. So embarrassing. I feel like dying. No, I'm already dead. My Facebook page has many posts visible only to me, written in times when I was barely hanging on. Too many, I couldn't bother to delete them. Now Mandy was going through them one by one, really mortifying. Mandy slowly flipped through them, his eyes welling up with tears again. I sat cross-legged on his desk and sneered, "Your belated affection is worth less than dirt." That evening, Victoria dragged her suitcase back to Mandy's place. As soon as she entered, she started acting coy. "Mandy, why didn't you come to pick me up?" Mandy stood at the top of the staircase, looking down at Victoria with a cold gaze. Just like how he used to look at me, Victoria noticed something was off and her sweet smile faded. "Mandy, what's wrong?" Mandy walked down the stairs, not caring that the assistant was still there, and said, "Victoria, haven't I always told you, we can't be together anymore?" Victoria's expression changed, perhaps embarrassed because the assistant was still there. "Mandy, what do you mean by that?" Mandy replied, "Yes, I used to like you, but you rejected me. I figured out why, back then. My father had problems, and my family was in decline, not suitable for you." The young lady, "Sure, I still had thoughts about you, but we were just friends. You come to me when you're in trouble, and I help as much as I can. The outside world has made our affair so scandalous. I cared for your reputation and didn't clarify, but why did you become so presumptuous? How could you have the face to send that email to Laura?" Victoria's face turned pale. She became flustered and started to defend herself. "But, didn't you say you didn't like Laura? Whether I like her or not is none of your business." Mandy cut her off. "I told you I didn't like Laura 3 years ago. I married her with no feelings involved because it was arranged by my mother, and I couldn't refuse. That's why I initially couldn't accept her and used work as an excuse to go abroad and escape. But I am human. After 5 years together, even a block of ice like me would melt." Mandy said, "It's just that I'm not good with words and have always been constrained by this dreadful pride, never daring to confront my own feelings directly, which has led to this situation." The ghost sister leaned on my shoulder to watch the drama unfold. "Wow, he's confessing his love." I retorted, "What's the value of a confession?" Mandy continued, "Laura is my wife, and I could divorce her due to emotional discord, but you are not the reason for our divorce." No matter how much Victoria pleaded and tried to hold on to him, Mandy refused to give her another glance. Deep down, I always felt Mandy had feelings for Victoria. Suddenly knowing all this, I couldn't handle it, so I chose to avoid it. Mandy has been staying in my apartment recently, forcing me and the ghost sister to her place on the rooftop. I just want these 30 days to hurry up so death can take me away. On the 11th day after my suicide, the ghost sister came to tell me that Mandy had someone beat up a guy and even used his connections to bankrupt him. I asked her how she knew. The ghost sister replied, "I heard it from under his bed." Typical ghost sister, always on the front lines of gossip. I floated to Mandy's office, where I saw his assistant organizing documents. While sorting, the assistant grumbled, "This man is just unlucky. Who told him to mess with our boss's wife? Though it's been many years, a gentleman's revenge is never too late." I drifted over and glanced at the document. It was about my sister's former boyfriend. I had only mentioned in my diary that when I was 19, he almost assaulted me. I never expected Mandy to take revenge for me today. I smirked. Mandy was somewhat useful, after all. The ghost sister said that Mandy, for my sake, had fallen out with my family and even used his influence to ruin my brother's company because he overheard my brother calling me a financial loss. The ghost sister also said that Mandy stopped all financial support to my family. My parents, going crazy, ran to Mandy's company daily until Mandy had them arrested by the police. She mentioned that the business of my sister's husband's family, which had previously relied on Mandy's support, collapsed after Mandy withdrew his investment. When my sister tried to seduce Mandy, he threw her out, scoffing that she couldn't even compare to a single hair of mine. Even the wealthy heir who had always targeted me during my internship, Mandy had intercepted his family's business dealings. It can be said that Mandy had taken revenge on everyone I had issues with. As mentioned in my diary, I still say, delayed affection is cheaper than grass. I've already suffered. Revenge means nothing to me now. Mandy is still staying in my apartment, turning me into a homeless, wandering ghost. So, I said to the ghost sister, "Can you write something for me? Leave a message for Mandy." The ghost sister, impressed by what Mandy had done, thought I was moved too. she suggested writing on the mirror when the bathroom was steamy. The ghost sister was excited. What do you want to write? A confession? Or tell him that you'll be resurrected in a few more days and to wait for you? Ah, I can't write too much. Pick something. I shook my head. No need to write too much. Just a few words will do. Which words? Wait for my resurrection, or I love you too? I laughed. Right, get out of my house. After Mandy finished his shower, looking at the large characters on the mirror that read, "Get out of my house," he went mad and shouted my name all night long in the house, annoyed. I went to the riverside to watch people night fishing. The ghost sister told me I had a heart of steel. Despite everything Mandy had done, I still couldn't forgive him. I responded, "A heart of steel is forged over time, ever heard of, tempered into steel?" Yet, the ghost sister kept bringing me all sorts of news about Mandy. I just watched the days pass by, thinking as soon as 30 days were up, I'd swiftly leave. Then one day, she told me Mandy tried to commit suicide by overdosing on sleeping pills, but fortunately, he was saved. I felt no ripple in my heart. I even wanted to laugh. So what if he dies? It's nothing great, as if he can't die like anyone else. The ghost sister, always looking at things from a tricky angle, said, "But have you thought about it? If Mandy dies, he could become a ghost and come looking for you." I immediately ran to the hospital and entered Mandy's dreams while he was still unconscious. In his dream, he came towards me with tearful eyes, wanting to embrace me. "Laura, don't go." I gestured for him to stop. "Stay away from me. Who do you think we are to each other? We're nothing, no touching allowed." Mandy froze, still confused about the situation. "Am I dead?" "You're not dead," I said. "And don't you die. Why tell me not to die? Yet you secretly died yourself." I snorted, "Because I don't want to see you, so I died." "You can't die." Mandy gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Yeah, you must hate me. I've always ignored you, never considering your feelings. You know that now, which is good," I replied. "I'm not good with words, and I'm awkward. I always thought I loved Victoria and married you while my heart was with someone else. I didn't know how to face you or myself, so I avoided dealing with our marriage from the start. After my mother passed away, it was just you and me left at home. I was depressed, and you were always there, taking care of me, bringing me warm milk at night, keeping the lights on no matter how late I got home, often falling asleep on the sofa waiting for me, yet the food was still warm. Maybe I had feelings for you long ago, but I was always afraid to admit it. When you talked about divorce, saying there was no love left, that's when I started to fear because I thought the marriage would keep you from leaving, so I took you for granted. But when you insisted on the divorce, I got scared. During the cooling off period, I tried to restrain myself, thinking that since the marriage wasn't happy to begin with, letting you go would be the right choice if there was really no love left. But after getting drunk, I couldn't help but look for you. I thought that even if we divorced, I could still win you back eventually. You saw marriage as a shackle, so I would wait for you to be ready to come back to me. Because of my damn actions, you, carrying our child, died on New Year's Eve in that cold bathtub, leaving me behind. Laura, I've always been afraid to face my feelings. Only after you left did I realize too late. I've already fallen for you. Laura, I'm sorry. I watched a person who was once so proud, now kneeling and crying in front of me, and to say I was unmoved would be a lie. My heart was sour, and my nose tingled slightly. "Mandy, I once saw you as my salvation," I said to him. "I thought by leaving that hellish family behind and starting a new one with you, I wouldn't have to face those unhappy moments again, but the redemption I hoped for turned out to be an even deeper abyss. You say you have feelings for me, but in these 5 years, I've never felt the love you supposedly had for me." Mandy knelt on the ground, so humble. "I can make it up to you. I can make it right." I laughed. "It's too late to make it up now. I'm already dead, so you need to live well. Carry on with the guilt towards me. That's the only way you can make it up to me." Before he could speak, I continued, "Your mother was very kind to me and she loves you, so I don't want you to be hurt because it would make her sad. I could have come back to life, but I refused because I feel that even if the past misunderstandings were cleared, the damage has already been done and amends would be pointless now. I don't need your love anymore." 30 days after my suicide, Death returned, holding the Book of Life. He glanced at the female ghost beside me and sighed. "It's been so long since you jumped. Why haven't you reincarnated yet?" The female ghost replied, "Being a free-roaming spirit is more carefree." I knew deep down that her resentment was too profound for her to reincarnate. After scolding her, Death turned to me. Your 30-day period is up. What's your decision? The female ghost chimed in, obviously. She should come back to life. That's how it happens in novels, right? She comes back to life, ends up with the CEO, and they have a happy ending. I gave a bitter smile. Sister, life isn't like a novel. A broken mirror can't be made whole again. Death's eyes flickered. So, what's your decision? I smiled resignedly. Of course, I choose to reincarnate. My life has been a mess. I want to start over. Death, having seen much, did not ask further. The female ghost looked regretful as Death gave her a look. Stop indulging in those naive romantic novels. Your man isn't coming back for you. Go on and reincarnate. I bid farewell to the female ghost and followed Death to the cycle of reincarnation. Are you truly without regrets? Death asked. Yes, I replied. I've spent 27 years proving how meaningless my life has been. Why would I regret leaving it behind? Death crossed my name off in the book of life and smiled warmly. Then in your next life, I wish you a loving family and a partner who adores you. I smiled bitterly. I hope so. If I'm worthy, you are worthy, Death said. You're a good girl. Then, goodbye. Death watched as I walked away towards the cycle of reincarnation. In this life, I am free of all attachments. That's all about this story. Do you have any insights after watching the above story? Feel free to tell us in the comment sections below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe our channel. See you next time.